Alright guys, as the title states, this video is most powerful 45 ACP rounds. Okay, let me explain to you what that means real quick. Generally, well, these are for potential baseline. I only have so much gel, but what I mean by most powerful is the highest amount of energy I could find. Like these are over 600 foot-pounds of energy. A standard 45 ACP ball round, or FMJ, or whatever you want to call it, is under 400 foot-pounds of energy. It's usually like high threes, like 380, 390. So these are almost twice as powerful as a standard load. So some of these I'm calling most powerful 45 rounds because of the sheer amount of energy they have, and we'll go over that in a second when we look at them up close. And these two, though, are because of the rapid expansion and fragmentation that they do. This one's still very high amount of energy, 600 foot-pounds. But these RIPs, which some of you might be familiar with, they're more like a standard load. They're only going like 900 and some feet per second, and they're only 300 some foot-pounds of energy. So they're not a hot load, but they're really devastating because of what they do. So, and then I got some gold dots up here. If we have room, these are the ones I'm mainly interested in testing because these are the most powerful. These two, pretty high on the energy, and we got an interesting one here, the Defender, which I'll discuss. So I'm probably going to shoot all these first. I have some standard gold dots for comparison that we'll do last because I only have so many blocks. So if we're going to have skewed results or anything like that, I want it to be on the basic stuff. I'm trying to leave room so I have room for all the shots. This is clear ballistics, synthetic. If you want to know the difference between this stuff and this Knox ballistics gelatin that I make, I'm going to leave a link in the description. I made a video discussing the difference in those and the pros and cons of each. This is a little cloudy. My other block I have is a little more clear. They turn out a little better than last time. I have to bake them for like 8 hours to get them to be clear. I guess it's because of the size or whatever. And there's some jean material and whatnot in there, which won't really affect anything. I tried straining the stuff like I do this, and this stuff is so thick when it's molten. It's like basically like a hot glue gun stick. So you can't strain it. So I don't know how people get all that out. That would take forever to pick every single little piece out. So I'm not worried about that. That's why you see pieces in there. It shouldn't really affect anything. So like I said, I might run one of these at the end for a baseline. This is your standard pressure gold dot 45, 185 grain. From what I've seen, most standard pressure stuff is 185s because they're trying to get a little higher velocity out of it so that they can get reliable expansion from the hollow points. So that's a pretty typical self-defense load. These are plus P. I don't know that I'll shoot any. Maybe at the end I will, just for the heck of it, because I really want to see what these do. 200 grain plus P. But as I said, the title of the video is most powerful, and this corner is most powerful due to the sheer amount of energy, and this because of the sheer amount of explosiveness that they do. Okay, so while these are pretty powerful, these are 500, according to my calculations and the velocity, 513 foot-pounds of energy, I believe it was. So that's still really powerful round for 45, but not as powerful as these. So these are the ones I want to make sure we get done in this video today. I got buffalo bore here, 185 grain plus P, 1150 feet per second, which makes that 566 foot-pounds of energy, which is more than my gold dots. The Underwood, let's see here, the Extreme Defender, that's coming in at like 530 something on energy, with the 120 grain going 1420. These were 580, 590, as far as foot-pounds of energy goes, so that's getting up there. These are the most powerful ones I have, according to foot-pounds of energy. 616 foot-pounds of energy if you're getting that advertised velocity there. Okay, which out of this 5-inch barrel 1911, I should be getting those velocities. Like I said, this one, it's like 162 grain, I believe. It's only going 950, 960, so it's only like 300 some foot-pounds, but they're explosive because of, well, look at them. And then this, 78 grains, 1900 feet per second, and that's from a pistol barrel. From what I've seen, all these actually do get those velocities out of pistols, so that's not a BS number. And with that, 600 foot-pounds of energy. So as I said, these are the most powerful rounds that you can get for 45 ACP. All of these because the insane amount of energy. These two because they're so light and so fragmenting and explosive, but this one actually still has 600 foot-pounds of energy. But this one just shoots like a regular round, but because of the design, it's very explosive. So obviously this is some expensive stuff. A lot of these boxes here cost me $50, $60, $70 a piece. The gel's expensive too. This is all out of pocket, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. We also already did 380 and 9mm, so I'll put the links to those videos in the description on this one if you want to check those out too. On the last one, somebody was asking me about calibration on this stuff because it's got to be temperature controlled and all that, which it is. I have it in the car in a giant ice cooler full of ice, so they are very cold. But I'm gonna go ahead and do the calibration. You shoot a BB, it's like 570 to 590 feet per second is what you need. Standard 177 cal BB, and you're supposed to get between 2.75 and 3.5 inches of penetration or something like that, and that's how you make sure that it's within spec. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. I'll even do it on the clear one, even though, you know, that's pre-made. I don't have nothing to do with composition of that, but let's do that real quick and then we'll get started. All right, I think it just says error because I swiped my finger over it. It's the 9 pumps here, and the 760 pump master should be about the velocity we need. So let's see what we get here. Well, that's not good. So the first shot, the velocity was a little too high, so I gave it 8 pumps on the next. So you see we're coming in about 4.5 there instead of 5. So that's definitely too much penetration. I don't understand because I made this to the correct mix. It's a 9-to-1 mix. I had seen where some people were saying do an 8-to-1 mix, which apparently that's what I need to do, but for it to be 10% ballistics gelatin, that means 9 parts water. Excuse me. Yeah, that's correct. 9 parts water to 1 part ballistics gelatin mix, which is how I made it. 9-to-1 ratio, and that's how you get 10% ballistics gel, because 10% of what's in there is gel, the other 90% is water, which is what I did. And, well, we're having over penetration, so that might be why everyone goes with the 8-to-1 ratio. So there's no sense in trying to hide this because the BBs are already in there. So that's what we got, so take it for what you will. I can tell you that being out here and doing these tests with the 380 and 9mm, they still seem pretty accurate as far as you know, expansion and penetration depths and all that, but take that for what you will. I apologize that apparently this isn't calibrated correctly, even though I mixed it right, so that must be why everyone goes 8-to-1 instead of 9-to-1. But I'm already out here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So it takes a lot for me to get out here and do this. It's a far drive and packing all this up, and it takes me days to make all this ballistic gel, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do it as is. So if anything, with that being apparently a little too soft based off of those penetration results, then basically we might be getting a little more penetration with the 45 rounds than what reality would be if you were shooting an attacker. Although I gotta say, with the 380 and 9mm tests we just did, which I used the exact same formula, they all seem to represent the correct penetration and whatnot pretty accurately compared to results I had seen from other videos of them, so I don't think it's skewing it too much. Alright, so off camera here, because I only have so much memory and battery to record this, I fired into the clear one too to see. And I don't know if you can see that bounce back. That's one of the things I don't like about this gel, but see how there's a wound track that travels about 3/4 of an inch past that BB. But even on this stuff, which I have not manipulated in any way, I bought it and you just melt it back down after you shoot it. Right there you can see 3.5, which is the maximum allowable, I believe it is, for the calibration to be within spec. But as I said, it went about 3/4 of an inch past that before it bounced back, so we're actually coming in at 4.25, and this was with 8 pumps, and this one's 4.5. So for whatever reason, again, this is just 10% as they sent it, and you just melt it down and remold it. I'm still getting, because of the bounce back, it actually traveled further than where it rests. I'm getting over penetration on this one too for some reason, and they've only been out here in the sun about 5 minutes. So yeah, I don't know if it's my atmosphere or the elevation, which is only like 100 or 200 feet, but yeah, even this one, it's coming in higher than what it's supposed to. So it's actually, the one I made at 4.5 inches on 8 pumps is pretty close to this at 4.25 on 8 pumps. So I would say it's fairly accurate, even though the numbers don't match up. Alright guys, I got my 4 layers of denim on there, as is FBI protocol, to simulate thick clothing or a thick hide of a large animal. So let's get started. Alright, so these are the 6 that are really meant for the video, the most powerful, again for the reasons discussed. So I'm going to start out with the ones with the highest energy aside from this one, and then we'll do those 2 last, the extreme fragmenting ones. So I'll try to start lowest energy to higher. Obviously the hollow point design will affect what it does regardless of energy, but that would mean that I start with this light one. It was 530 something, I believe. Sorry, yeah, the 120 grain, the Extreme Defender, and then we'll go Buffalo 566. Then we'll go to this one, which was around 590, and then this one is 616, and then we'll switch over to these crazy exploding ones. So this is the Underwood Extreme Defender, 120 grain, 1420 feet per second, I believe it said. Like I said, calculated 530 some foot-pounds of energy. I really like these rounds. Now don't get these confused with the Extreme Penetrator, because they look similar. This is the Extreme Defender, which these flutes here are deeper and larger, and what these do, it does the explosive damage of a hollow point, but without expanding. It causes fluid disruption. Now I forgot to mention, but I got both gels because we'll shoot each one with one of each of these rounds, because some people like the synthetic stuff, swear by it, and others like myself, I like this brown stuff and swear by it. So I'm trying to give you guys the best of both worlds and shoot both. So I'll just be about 10 feet back behind this target here. So here we go. First up is that Extreme Defender by Underwood. Of course I hit high like a jack off. Kind of hard to squat over there as I squat down, and the table's still not quite high enough. So looks like it came out the top. Yeah, then we take another one a little lower. Well, I'm just big screw up today. I try to slow down and quit rushing this. It always sucks because I only have so much daylight and I'm trying to get this done. Let me try one more around here. Hopefully I'll hit it in the right damn spot this time. Why the f can't I hit it in the center? I keep hitting the edge. It's pissing me off. I'm trying to keep them on the sides. That way you can see the cavity from one, see the cavity from the other without touching each other. Now I even aim center and hit to the right again. I'm gonna run out of damn battery by the time I get it right. Taking a dead center shot. You can see we captured it, but I'm not happy that we can't see the cavity because I got 3 or 4 shots in the same damn place. So this time I'm going center mass. Jesus Christ. I just kept hitting the side, and I even aimed. Apparently, I don't know. There's entry. Finally, we can see the cavity by itself, because it's hard to see what the hell's going on here. Let me get a tape measure on that real quick. Coming in about 21 and a half there for both of those. So let me hit one in the clear real quick, then we'll move to the next round. I wanted to show this real quick. I don't know if all the rounds are going to do this or what, or if it's just because it's the 45. This is 11 inches from here to here, and it maintained that cavity all but the last 1.5 inches, so it just had massive damage for around 9.5 to 10 inches before it finally started to slow down. So I mean, you got 10 inches of just shredded. All right, let's get one in the clear block here real quick. All right, so there's your clear block. It's hard to see because it's so cloudy. This one's a little better, like I said. Still not crystal clear like when I got them. There's your bullet. So like you see, the cavity is a lot smaller, the permanent cavity in this clear stuff, which is why I like using that. Because the FBI forever had used this. This is what is supposed to be accurate representation, and this stuff just always looks vastly different. So again, check out my video, link in the description, explaining the differences in these. But there's a reason it does this, and this stuff is harder too. Even if you make that 20% instead of 10%, this stuff is still harder at 10%. It's just not the same. So our penetration here, right there, with the hollow points, typically it'll penetrate less than this stuff, but since this doesn't expand, we're coming in there at about 21.5 again. So now we'll do the buffalo bore. There's a close look at those, if it would focus. So those definitely seem to dump their energy better. Hollow point expanding dumps energy better than something that maintains its round shape like the Extreme Defender, even though the Extreme Defender does a lot of damage. And good hit, as you can see right there. And it looks like, to me, the Extreme Defender did more damage, even though it didn't throw the block like that. Okay, but it gradually went up and exited the block right here. It was almost to the back, so it probably would have went out the end anyways, but I want to take one more just to see if we can try to catch it. You would, I don't even think it expanded, because it shouldn't penetrate that far. These generally penetrate pretty far because they don't expand. But if that penetrated, you would think it wouldn't have went that damn far. So let me try another one, see if I can get it to stay in the block, or even if it exits, then, I mean, if it exits, that's pretty much guaranteed that it didn't expand, or at least didn't expand fully, which I wouldn't think would be the case considering they're plus P rounds. All right, well, we'll try one more in the brown here and try to catch this thing. We got it. All right, that would be your entry. It's hard to see anything under that, so I'll flip it over, but it didn't look very big. So then that's the path from that. Not too big. And these blocks moved and whatnot. But it's sitting right here. Okay. Yeah, it didn't expand very much, that's why. Of course, we'll examine all these at the end here, but yeah, it didn't expand very much. It just kind of flat-nosed. So that's why it went so far. So right here is 21.5 on these, if I remember correctly. You're getting about another inch there, and that's because they didn't fully expand. Huh, so that's interesting. That might be because of the denim, but you know, there's a reason you do that, in case your attacker's wearing thick clothing. All right, we'll try one in the clear here. All right, there's your entry. Again, I'm sorry it's cloudy and it's hard to see, but it didn't do much because it went straight out the back. Because in the synthetic gel, it did not expand. All right, I got 2 fresh brown blocks up there. Now we're gonna run the Underwood, if I can situate it correctly. Of course it's on the lid, I flip up, really. 185 grain, 1200 feet per second. Like I said, the calculation on these is somewhere around 590 foot-pounds of energy, so pretty stout round. All right, pretty nice round there. There's your permanent, oh, I'm zoomed in there, permanent cavity. Like I said, these blocks are 11 inches from here to there. Slightly tapered, so for it to come in that low and stop there, you're about 11.5, 12. So let me get that. Yep, 11.5. Nice freaking mushroom. The cavity looks even bigger from up top. So those are pretty nice rounds. Dead center hit. All right, let's hit it with the clear, and then we'll go on to the next one. Now we got much further penetration in this, and it's because one of these is your entry here. Hard to see cavity because this is cloudy. That doesn't help. But you can see it penetrated much further, and that's because it didn't expand nearly as much. I don't know how well you guys can see it right now. It did expand some, but not nearly as much as it did in that. So that's why it penetrated further. Let me get a measurement real quick. All right, so we're at about 18 inches there. Again, I apologize, it's cloudy. Apparently I gotta cook this stuff down for like 10 hours, which is a lot of damn propane to use. But you're already seen with the other one that your wound cavity in this is not nearly as impressive anyways as in this, even with the same penetration, depth, and expansion and all that, just because this stuff just does not react the same. So given the fact that it expanded less, and the fact that you already get, even with the same expansion, you get less permanent cavity in this, there's not really much to see in here anyways. All right, now for the atomic, these were 185 grain at 1225 feet per second for 616 foot-pounds of energy. So this is the most powerful round I have as far as foot-pounds of energy goes, and it's also the most powerful I've ever seen. I can tell you right now, I'm pretty sure that's a gold dot bullet that they stuck in there. So it's pretty much just a gold dot bullet going really fast. So let's see what this one does. Good hit, good capture. Surprisingly, wound cavity not that big. Yeah, and both of these, they stop pretty short, okay? Which is what I pointed out about that Extreme Defender. 10 inches of this. These are stopping after a few inches. I guess this one carries on a little further, but still not nearly as far as the Extreme Defenders did. So there's our round right there. See if I can see what's going on here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome expansion. It's probably honestly a little overexpanded. So maybe that's why, for being probably the biggest mushroom we had with the most amount of energy that actually fully expanded, it didn't do too terribly much. Maybe because it overexpanded a little bit. And we're coming in about 14.5 there on penetration. All right, let's try it in the clear. Again, not a whole lot to see in this clear stuff because they just don't expand that much. It's this lower track here. All right, and then this little zip was already here from the one that I believe that was the Extreme Defender. Anyways, that's the cavity there. It's hard to see from the side because it's so far in there. And then right there's your bullet. You get a measure on that. This thing got disgusting. It rode clear back to where I was almost. All right, about 19 inches there, roughly. All right, real quick before we move on to the Liberty and the RIP rounds, since this block isn't too tore up, I'm going to hit it with one of each of those gold dots. Remember, the one was a standard pressure, 185 grain. The other one was a 200 grain plus P. So stick one of each in here, see what happens. The only thing we got in there, what the heck were these? That was that Underwood, and then that was the Atomic. And then here we have, I'm going to shoot the gold dots into this side as well. So we'll run the gold dots real quick, just to get kind of like an idea of like your more typical carry load, both plus P and non plus P. And then we'll move on to the last two, the exotic rounds. All right, I'll do the 185 first and then the 200 plus P. .185 hit about the same hole. I didn't mean to hit that close. You can see it flowered out a little on this other side of that, and right there it is. Let me do the 200 plus P real quick. All right, we're hitting it on the right side with the 200. Entry's one of them. I believe this one. And then, yeah, that should be your 200 right there, because I don't think there was anything else over there. Let me try to clear real quick and we'll get these last two in. All right, 185. There's your 185 right there. Hit that 200 plus P real quick so we can move on to those. So then that should be the 200 there, just past it. Looks like they expanded. I mean, at least they're tore up. He coming in about 18.5 and 20 inches there. So I didn't think it was quite that far in the brown. It was out to about here. That's 11 and a little shy, somewhere around there. Anyways, that was just to see if they would open up and perform. So we'll verify all this when I'm done here in a sec. Pull them all out and compare, see what's what. All right, I got two fresh brown blocks up there for these last two. So we'll do the RIPs now. As I said, this is just a standard load. It's a light bullet and it's not going fast. It doesn't need to, I guess. They're like 950, 960. Oh, right there it says 960 feet per second, 162 grain bullet. I just now noticed that. But they're like 330 or 40 foot-pounds of energy. That's it. But it's rapid expansion because these pedals break off. So let's hit the... I'm going to switch around to that clearest block for this too. And let's do these RIPs and then Liberties next. I really hope you guys appreciate the nightmare that this production is for me to put together and drive a 2-hour round trip and have to carry all this shit by myself. So go ahead and hit that like button. I'd appreciate it. There's your RIP. Pedals out. There's some pedals there. And when I was picking it up, I seen that one punched through the bottom. That one right there. So we'll get a measure on that. And then there's your base. The pedals separate and then the base continues on. Seems like a little further penetration than I got with the 9mm, which I mean it should be. It's a heavier base. So pedal as far as 6 1/4 inches roughly, 6.5. I mean your cavity there is the entire width of this block. It's about 4.5, 5-inch cavity from those pedals. And then the base is coming in there at about 14 inches on this brown stuff today. Alright, these are the only synthetic blocks I have, so I'm going to put the RIP right center mass to the best of my ability. Should be able to see that. This is the more clear block. And then slightly adjacent to it over here, we'll hit with the Liberty. Hopefully not contact any of that crap. But I want to be able to see it, so that's what I'm doing. Entry. Some pedal shot out somewhere, I guess. Bounced off the jean material. Probably right there, it looks like. Yeah. Pedal, pedal, pedal. I mean, there's my hand. So, again, 4 or 5 inch cavity. As far as fragmentation goes. And then the base. I don't think the base went through. Give me a sec. Alright, so the base, I can see the track right there, it carried through. And there's a little tiny pinhole right there. This thing, you know, it just closes back up on itself. And I do believe right there is the base. Which, if that's correct, that's about 15 inches of penetration. 14, 15. Alright, there's your civil defense load. Just a big, super light, machined hollow point. About 11 inches for the base there. RIP Liberty. All right, entry, something like that. One of these freaking holes. I mean, the cavity is much smaller in this clear crap, as is my experience. You can see it there, okay? And then it curved. It's under this freaking base is right down there on the very edge of the block. So about 10.5, 11 inches. So right there's the base at the very back side. Alright guys, here's the results. You're going to notice a commonplace of less expansion through the synthetic. As I discussed, that's kind of what it does. Again, look for the link for the video in the description. I made a video explaining the differences between the two. So if you want to try to understand that, that's a typical result, is you get less expansion out of those. So if you get less expansion, typically you'll get more penetration because there's not as much resistance from a smaller diameter from less restriction, less expansion. Likewise, if you somehow manage the same amount of expansion, then you will typically get less penetration through this because it's harder, even though it says 10%. So anyways, let's take a look at these. So all of these are out of the brown, all of these are out of the clear. All right. So apparently I got 2 of the Extreme Defenders out of the brown. So I don't know if we, that's right. That's because I kept hitting the same area. So yeah, there's those 2. All right. So like I said, that's the way they're supposed to look, pretty undeformed there. So then this would be the buffalo bore. And like I said, that it penetrated pretty far, and I was saying this because I believed it didn't expand very much, which you can see next to these. Yeah, it didn't. That's surprising because buffalo bore, pretty good stuff. That was high velocity, plus P, whatever it was, almost 600 foot-pounds of energy. And it just didn't expand very much, so that's why it penetrated as far as it did. If I remember correctly, we lost one, I think, so I fired another and we barely captured it. Then this would be the Underwood 185 grain plus P. That was 1,200 feet per second. 590 some foot-pounds by my calculations. That's probably the biggest expansion I've ever seen of anything. And I wish I had calipers to show you, but you can compare it here. I mean, that's 45 caliber. I think it's safe to say it doubled in size. So that's at least 80 caliber expansion. And the jacket did separate, but barely. This is the one that fell out of that block while I was moving around, I believe. And it was still with the jacket. So it just, there was nothing, the jacket didn't separate in the gel, they stayed together, but when I pulled it out, it separated. There's just massive expansion there. And then this was the atomic round. Now I was saying how it penetrated really far, even though it got really good expansion. I was saying I think that was because it overexpanded a little bit. And this is the 185 gold dot, and this is the 200 plus P gold dot. You should be able to see the difference there. The edges of that are smooth, whereas the edges of that are more sharp. And it's hard to tell, but I believe the 200 grain, which didn't penetrate quite as far, and a slower velocity, but it expanded just ever so slightly bigger, I believe. But also, it's got much sharper, much more robust, much more digging in edges, whereas that you can just see that it kind of smoothed it out from that extremely high velocity. So I think that's why that one penetrated so far, even though it expanded so great, because it actually overexpanded a little. It started curling back under, and the velocity smoothed the edges of it. I still really like it though. There's the 185 standard pressure gold dot. We did mid test just for comparison. And then there's the 200 plus P, as I said. So the 185, still pretty good expansion. Not quite as large an end result as the 200. There's your RIP. There's one of the pedals and what it looks like. And there's the Liberty Civil Defense. I think that's facing upward. And there's one of the little itty bitty pieces. It was hard for me to find any, but they just break up like that. So then we'll come to the synthetic side. So there's your Extreme Defender. Now there's a gap here because this one didn't expand very well even in the brown, and it zipped right through the clear, so we didn't even bother with another shot because, like I said, you're getting more penetration in this because they don't expand as much. So we would have never caught that anyways. So we did not get a capture there because it didn't expand. It barely expanded in the brown here, and it zipped right through this crap, which was even longer, I believe. Anyways, we don't have one for that because expansion was not very good or missing completely, and it just right through, so we don't have one of those. Either way, we can tell from the brown that it just doesn't perform very well. So then there is, what is that, the Underwood 185 grain plus P. So you can see again we got jacket separation, and that was with the bullet again when I pulled it out, but it just easily separated. So you can see there's massive difference in expansion. Through my brown, it expanded much more than it did in the clear stuff, but it's impressive that it still expanded pretty well in the clear, which offers more resistance and not as much expansion. Then there is your atomic. Okay, again, you can see that there's 185 gold dot and the 200 plus P gold dot. Again, you can see the edges are just like glossed over, like from the extreme heat and velocity, whereas with the 200 grain they hold nice sharp edges. Okay, so unlike over here, well, yeah, it's about the same penetration or expansion over there. Again, you got about the same expansion, and you can see that it's much less through the synthetic stuff than what we got with the brown. They didn't fold over as much, but you can still see these edges are like glossed over from the extreme heat and velocity. And then the 185 just did not perform very well at all in the synthetic. There's your 200, still did beautifully in the synthetic. And then there's your RIP and your Liberty Civil Defense. And we already know what the pedals look like from over here. So take from that what you will. You guys saw the wound channels. This had extremely impressive expansion. The gold dots did really well in the brown, and the 185 didn't do very well in the synthetic, but the 200 plus P still did. So that's a very nice load. Perform no matter what through 4 layers of denim. This one too, still really good expansion. I mean, all these have reduced expansion through the synthetic, but some of these still, even with that, still expanded pretty nicely. The atomic, pretty nice also, but you get a little over expansion maybe, and a little further penetration. So if you want more penetration, then there you go. But your standard gold dot will do just as well, maybe even better depending on who you are and what you prefer. RIP, Liberty, pretty self-explanatory. These, I'm really impressed with these. They don't have, you know, they had one of the biggest permanent cavities, but not the biggest. But the depth, the fact that it was 10 inches long of just shredded nastiness, compared to all these, they expand and they leave 5 to 6 inches of destruction before they calm down. Those 10 inches of destruction, so that's real nice. I like that. So there's your results. Obviously, if you're carrying a smaller 45 compact or whatever, your results aren't going to be quite this good, because that 5-inch barrel gives you a higher velocity. Now, something like this, if you thought that it over penetrated because it over expanded or whatever, then a slightly smaller barrel 45, you know, knock an inch or two off the barrel, then it might perform more the way you want it to. But as far as like say the gold dots, for example, if you have a shorter barrel, they're not going to expand quite as much, and you might even have issues with the standard pressure 185 out of a shorter barrel. Although I'd say you probably wouldn't, because like I said, this stuff just doesn't like to expand in the synthetic gel. That's going to do it for today, guys. Like I said, this was pretty expensive production for me, all out of pocket, so I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button for me. Make sure you check out the 380 and the 9mm video we did as well, doing the exact same thing. Links should be in the description. And if you want to know the difference between synthetic and organic, links in the description for that as well. But I appreciate you watching. Hope you liked the video, because I put a lot into it. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Also, on one last note, in upcoming videos, and this includes 380 and 9mm as well, we're going to test each one of these rounds for all the calibers that I have, where the video is just about that round, and we'll test different variables, and instead of just shooting one into the block, we'll shoot several. So make sure that the results are, you know, replicated, and that some don't fail and some work great. So we'll do it, I intend to do it without denim, and then with just a t-shirt, as oftentimes your attacker's just wearing a t-shirt. Then with the 4 layers of denim, I'm thinking about a barrier test as well, like say drywall, metal, wood, glass, stuff like that. And then also putting some ribs, like pork ribs, into the equation. So basically a really in-depth test for each one of these rounds. Same thing, 380, 9mm, like I said. And then eventually when I get some 40 cal too. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, click all to receive notifications when I post. Also, just because this is the most powerful 45 ammo you can get doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. I mean, as you could see there, some of it clearly did not perform. So there's that. So in the future, I intend to, getting ammo right now is obviously difficult, but in the future I intend to do best carry loads. Like, you know, a lot of people like the Federal HSTs or the Hydra Shock or whatever it's called. I think actually there's 2 different ones there, and those are really good rounds too. But so I do eventually plan to do best rounds. You know, just because these are the most powerful doesn't mean they're the best, although I would say that several of these performed pretty admirably, so some of these would definitely make the runnings for that video. But eventually, when I can gather all the things I want, like the Federals, and there's some others I want to acquire as well, we'll do a video on that and see which ones are truly the best.